All right, here we go. So I had the opportunity to interview the Eric Byrd Trio. I'm here with Bhagwan, Al, and Eric. So first thing, coming up on 20 years, how did you three meet and become the Eric Byrd Trio?
I think like I told Paul Carr, I think the easiest way is that I think Bhagwan and I met first in about 1996. We were playing with another musician, Ron Kearns, and he hired us both to play at Blues Alley. I think that's how I met Bhagwan first. Although I vaguely remember that Howard Burns hired Bhagwan to play like a graduation ceremony at an FCC graduation or something. I think. And Bhagwan had on a turban and everything. And so he was very striking. He was tall, he had a turban on. Handsome, and he played his butt off. And so that was like 96. And then Howard had a quartet, and I pissed off the drummer in that band. Imagine that. And then he quit unceremoniously. And then Howard didn't shed any tears because he said there's this cat new in town, Alfonso Young, and he's great, and so let's get him. And so I remember playing with Al. And then the rest is kind of history. We really didn't become, I guess, a real band until 2001 when we got the ambassadorship.
And so when you guys were just starting up, what were some goals, either long-term or short-term, that you wanted to be successful?
That's a good question. For me, I wanted to be the Chick Corea acoustic band. It's odd because, Chick just passed away. But in my mind, when I first started playing jazz, like in the early, mid-90s, I wasn't very good. So I was just kind of getting my sense of, like, what jazz was and just, like, literally just hearing people for the first time. Like, literally just knowing who Sonny Fortune was and knowing who Joe Henderson was and knowing who Kenny Barron was. Like, I didn't know. Like you have to start somewhere. And so when the Chick Corea band came out, when that was like late 80s, early 90s, I was like really attracted to those records because all three of them could take the lead at any moment. It wasn't like the piano player was the lead and the bass player and the drummer like kind of stayed in the background. It was like, all three of them were kind of equal. And then Chick crafted songs to like feature every member of the band, and anyone could take over at any moment. And in the back of my mind, I was going, oh, that's what I want to be. I always liked Eric Clapton and Cream. Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker, where like all of them were like hellified musicians, and they could do anything they wanted to do. And so that's what I wanted. I didn't want to have like a backup. A lot of bands, it's like, it's named something, but the other guys like kind of back him up. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan, like the other guys backed up Stevie Ray Vaughan. I wanted a band where they could take over and I didn't even have to play. So that was so that was like the the capstone, kind of the idea of it. And then I think naturally, my natural personality, as you probably know, dear son of mine, I'm never really satisfied with what everybody else is doing.
Right.
I always want to do I want to do something nobody else is doing. So if everybody else is playing for this amount of money, I want to play for a different amount of money. And if everybody else is, wearing khakis and a untucked shirt, I want to tailor. And if everybody else has a web page that looks like their cousin made it, I want a professional. Like I always want to do something different from what everybody else is doing. So an early goal for me was I wanted to make sure that we had a catalog of recordings. Like everybody can do one record. I wanted to do like 10. Because if you have 10 records, for example, then it looks like you actually have something to say, and you have longevity, and you have, a catalog of music, and you can look back and go, wow, this is where we started, this is where we ended up, and, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would jump in and say, as far as Eric being different, and then also me and Al having an influence on it was actually at, I think maybe our trio's first headline at Blues Alley, that Eric sang a song or two, and me and Al were like, look, There's a million jazz trios out there, but not many of them have good musicianship and have someone who can sing. I mean, there's Diana Krall, and then there's not too many others. Now I know some of the people might start singing a little bit here and there, but to have a real vocalist who also can play, like the Nat King Cole thing, as far as having that sort of ability on the piano and ability to sing. Me and Al were like, Eric, you need to do this. And you might not remember this, but you went kicking and screaming, or at least you pretended to. Like, you were like, you didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I did.
You were afraid to be a singer because the singers have such a bad rap.
Right.
Yeah. For me, in the beginning stages of the band, I was still at the point to where I was still trying to get into the DC scene. I was a part of the scene, and then I left because I went to Miami, and so I was kind of at that stage, where I was playing with everybody. Jerry, right. You guys remember Jerry Gourd?
Oh yeah,
I was hitting all the time, but I think what I was looking for is a group or a foundation that was more consistent, something that I could be a part of that was continual, instead of just waiting for the phone call for the gig and not really knowing who's going to be on it and what we're doing. Right. But I tell you, doing all of that freelance stuff, it also made me want to be a part of something that was like Eric says, better, that was different. When you're doing a lot of freelance stuff, and we're out there working hard, but, presentation, the way that the music was being presented, the way that the guys were dressing, the professionalism, a lot of times that's not intact. It's just a gig, and, I was getting older, and I needed something more. I needed to be a part of something that I thought was going to grow. And I was certainly blessed to run into Eric and Bhagwan, although it was at different times. I remember my first gig with Bhagwan, and he was, in the turban, and I think I talked about this before, in the turban and the I don't know what you call it. It's not a dashiki, is it? Like, the
all right,
the kurta pajama.
Yeah, and it was with what's his name? The alto player. But I left that gig totally intimidated because I had heard about Bhagwan. Because
it might have been my kirpan, which is the knife that Sikhs wear. That might have been it too.
No, okay.
Okay. Well, when I first met B, I did a record in '99 called The Fire Within, and Al wasn't on the record, but the late great Mike Smith was on drums. Mm-hmm. And right. I wasn't like Eric Bird trioing at that point. I just wanted to do a record just because, I had access to like Killers, and I wanted to record to see what that was like. And I remember driving to Bhagwan's house to go over the arrangements, and I was like saying, I had to take off work, to like, get here or whatever. And B was like, yeah, I don't do that. And I said, Al was laughing. I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, I learned the fake book in all 12 keys. What do you do? And I said, oh, okay, case closed. It's like, he like squared me away from the jump. He's like, I learned the fake book in all 12 keys. What do you do? And I was like, well,
still a work in progress.